Ruined my estranged sister's engagement by denying her claims of parental absence to her in-laws, and now she's furious with me. I am 25F and have an older sister Kate 30F. She and I were never close due to our age difference and because she hated that our dad married my mom and had me after divorcing her mother. Kate claims dad told her he never loved her mother and that my mom was his true love, that our dad always compared the two of us and asked her why she has to be a difficult child and that, overall dad loved me more. On the other hand, dad claims nothing she says is true, that she was very problematic and insolent. These claims are backed up by my mother and dad's parents, so I assume Kate was never 100% honest. Anyways, these are their problems that do not concern me. Some time ago Kate reached out to me and told me she got engaged. I said congrats and everything. She told me she has a favor to ask. She told me her mill is very family oriented and it does not sit well with her that Kate is estranged from her family. In her words, future mill considered something is also wrong with Kate and she is also to blame for being no contact with her family, fearing Kate will also influence her son to do the same thing. What Kate wanted from me was for me to meet her in-laws for them to see she does not hate her family. I joked that future mill sounds a little insane and I agreed to help her because at the end of the day I never hated her and I don't think she hated me neither. The fact we are not close does not mean we hate each other or want bad things to happen to the other one. Anyways, I went to meet Kate, her future husband and her mill and Phil at a restaurant. They are very nice people and very warm. At some point Mill said something along the lines that she is happy to see that the abuse we suffered did not affect our sisterly bond. I was confused and asked what abuse is she talking about while Kate tried to change the subject. Mill says it's okay, I have nothing to be ashamed of and that she knows from Kate our parents abused us while growing up. I clarified that this is not true, we were never abused by our parents or anyone in our family, we were raised in a very loving family, we were never hit or spanked no matter what we did, our parents are well off so we always had everything we wanted, clothes, phones, laptops, cars etc. Mill got very angry. She apologized to me and started insulting my sister. She called her a liar, accused her of being manipulative and trying to insert herself into their family by being dishonest. What happens is that Kate accused our parents of many things that are not true. Now Kate is accusing me of ruining her life. She says her engagement is over, the in-laws hate her and her fiancé does not trust her anymore. The thing is I don't think I did anything wrong. I cannot sit and hear people blasting my parents for her lies and for things that never happened. But still, Ada for telling the truth? Update 1. I got really mad reading every little comment from those who projected their own messy family life over my family and I realized the magnitude her words and claims can really have. People called my parents abusive, invented things that never happened and started projecting on what her life was. Some of them even claimed my mom ruined her family when my mom did not even met my father before his divorce, so it was a shock to me to see that strangers who somehow hear her stories may as well believe everything that she says without even doubting a word or even add their own dramas into the picture to feed her fantasy. The major thing that happened was that one day her ex-fiancé reached out to me via Facebook. He apologized for how things went during the meeting with his parents and asked me if I am willing to have a chat with him because he wanted to check my version for things that Kate told him. I explained that I do not want to do this behind her back because I don't think it was fair, but if he can manage to convince her for the three of us to have a conversation I am all in. I also told him there are a lot of things I need to confront her about and I would really feel more comfortable with a witness there. For 2 days I have heard nothing from them and yesterday the big conversation happened. We scheduled a call around evening because everybody felt more comfortable like this. I will say from the start that I had nothing to do with convincing my sister to attend the talk. This was her decision after discussing it with her ex. Based on what I understood, she agreed to it hoping that in the end her fiancé would take her back. Unfortunately I will admit, her ex and I kind of ganged up on her because both of us had many questions and she was the one to provide answers. Some answers that I got from her: why did she lie about being abused by my parents? She claimed she did not specifically mention me as being abused but admitted she did not correct her mill when she understood something else. So she knew her mill was living with the assumption our parents abused both of us but did not correct her in any way. When her fiancé asked her why, she said she felt by not correcting her, the mill will stop considering her the problem knowing that there were two of us in the same situation. She still claims she was abused by my parents. When I asked her to provide some clear examples she first said you know very well what happened but me and her fiancé insisted. Some of the things she mentioned were, when she was a teenager she was oftentimes punished while I was not, which was a clear indication I was loved more and this is abuse. Keeping in mind that when she was 14 to 15 I was only 9 to 10 and she was doing bad things like getting suspended for smoking during one of her classes, skipping school etc. How was I supposed to be punished along her? She said I was also doing bad things but was never punished while she was. Her fiancé asked her verbatim, so you claim you were abused because you were punished for smoking in class while the bad things your younger sister did was maybe draw on walls? How do you assume would be fair to punish such different actions the same? She was not able to answer. She claimed she was financially abused by her parents because they would not give her money for fun activities, school trips or events when she misbehaved. This was an example of punishments what she would often receive. Her fiancé asked her if our parents provided her with basic things like food, clothes, school supplies, and she said yes. He mentioned parents are not obligated to financially support trips and fun activities, so how was she financially abused? I asked her if she ever thinks about everything she did wrong towards our family. She claims she knows she was not a saint, but she was a child. I pointed out that at 17 you are not a child and you know better than to swear on your grandmother. Her fiancé had no idea about anything, so I explained some very nasty things she did and said, one time we were getting ready to go to our cousin's baptize and she wanted to wear a black t-shirt with a pentagram on it. Grandma asked her to change because her outfit was not appropriate for a baptize. Kate called her an old, outdated ing hag. Her fiancé mentioned a story Kate told him and his parents with an incident where my parents abused her and confiscated her car, leaving her to walk to school during winter time. What she failed to mention was that my parents confiscated her car because of a DUI that she treated like it was not a big deal. And secondly, she never had to walk to school during winter because she could have gone by bus, but in reality even with no car she carpooled with one of her colleagues. This triggered her ex a lot because unfortunately he lost his grandfather because of a drunk driver. So even knowing this, Kate lied and turned her story into a soap opera just for her to look like a victim. I asked her ex if she ever said negative things about me and he said no. She only mentioned some instances where our parents treated us differently but always pointed out that they were doing it to turn us against each other. But based on the stories she told, she apparently never blamed me for anything or said anything negative about me. The entire ordeal lasted for around 3 hours and in the end I was exhausted. I told her that even if we were never very close as sisters, I have always loved her and considered her my sister, period. Not half, just my only sister. I told her I understand that our parents could have handled things differently and maybe she did not receive all the help she needed to adjust to a stepmother and a new family dynamic, but I am now judging her as an adult who should know not to lie and pose as a victim and who should assume responsibility for her part. As people pointed out in my last post, I advised her to get therapy and solve all her issues, but until that happens I cannot continue to have a relationship with her. She accused me of favoring our parents over her, but I told her I favor the truth over lies and she should be ashamed of her. So that's what happened between me and Kate. I have no idea what happened or what will happen with her ex, but based on how things turned out, I really doubt he will give her another chance. He made it clear that she cannot be trusted and pointed out something his mother told him. If she is capable to lie in such a way about her own parent, what will she be capable of saying about him? He said he is not doubting she can start saying he was also abusive since this seems to be her narrative. But that's her own problem, she made this bed for herself. Update 2. Life, apparently, isn't done dealing wild cards. I figured after that call, I'd get a little peace. Instead, I ended up starring in the next season of family drama, Origins. About 3 days after the confrontation call, Kate started blowing up my phone, calls, voice notes, long texts. At first she was angry, accusing me, again, of destroying everything. Then it went weirdly apologetic. She said she didn't blame me, it's just that no one ever really cared to hear her side. I didn't reply, I figured silence would do less harm than anything I might send. But then something happened I really hadn't seen coming. Kate showed up at my apartment. It was almost midnight. I hadn't spoken to or seen her since the call, and there she was at my door, backpack slung over her shoulder, looking utterly exhausted and with eyes that didn't seem to have dried all day. I let her in. She sat at the little kitchen table and just cried. Not loud sobbing, but these long breathless heaves, like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally had to let go. Eventually, after awkward silence and a mug of tea I made mostly for my own nerves, she started to talk. Actually, she admitted something that really shocked me. After the breakup, Kate had to move out of her ex-fiancé's place. His parents wanted nothing more to do with her. Most of her friends had picked sides or drifted away, having often heard her abuse stories and now feeling duped. She didn't tell our mother and father, she didn't want to go back there. The only person left, in her words, was me. My head was spinning. Here's the sister I always knew but never really understood, suddenly spilling her guts in my kitchen. She said, her voice so small I could barely catch it, that she realized, after talking to her therapist that week, she's probably been rewriting the past for a long time. It just made everything simpler, she kept saying. If I was the victim, I wasn't the reason everything was so hard. She told me she knows now not everything our parents did was perfect, but it wasn't abusive. She said it's easier to remember being left out, being angry, than to face how lost she'd felt after the divorce and the remarriage. She felt like the odd girl out in a new family, and none of us really ever saw her pain. It's not your fault, she whispered. Or theirs. But it just hurt. She said she was scared about being alone now. She was scared, too, of ever being close to us, her family, again, in case it all fell apart. She actually asked if she could stay with me for a while. And here's the crazier twist, I said yes. Kate has been sleeping on my couch for nearly a week now. Our parents don't know, she made me swear not to say anything. She doesn't want them rushing to fix things, or shaming her with I told you so calls. We've had more real conversations in 3 days than we had in 25 years. Sometimes she asks what it was like for me growing up, what I remember, what felt normal, what didn't. Sometimes she just wants to binge watch trashy dating shows and pretend life isn't happening. I'm not going to say this is some perfect healing arc. We'll both probably spend years untangling all the mess. But she started making amends. She sent a long apology letter to her ex, and another to his parents. I don't expect them to forgive her, but she said the act of taking responsibility was the first time she felt a little bit lighter. The wildest thing is that now I'm seeing her as not some annoying half-stranger, but just as a really lost, complicated person, just like all of us. We've agreed to go together to a family therapy session, when she's ready, with our parents and me. She wants to try. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we'll ever be close as sisters, or even stay on good terms. For now, we're just two weird roommates/sisters, helping each other not drown. Honestly, if you'd told me a month ago this is where we'd be, I'd have laughed so hard I'd choke on my drink. But here we are. Update 3. So, it turns out the universe doesn't just deal wild cards, it likes to shuffle the deck behind your back and up the ante, too. First, the parents. Remember how I said Kate made me swear not to tell? Well, I managed to keep it under wraps for a whole 10 days. That is, until my mom FaceTimed me from her herb garden, complaining about the squirrels and asking why I look so tired lately. She heard Kate's voice in the background. I don't know who gets up at 7 a.m. to microwave day-old pizza, but okay, that's a trauma response for you. The next 5 minutes could have been mistaken for a vintage soap opera. Mom's shocked face, a thud. She dropped her phone amongst the basil, and then rapid-fire questions. Is Kate there? Is she okay? Do I know what's going on? Am I okay? Am I letting her starve? I tried to dodge, but Kate emerged in her dinosaur pajama pants and basically took the phone. For the first time in decades, I watched my mother and Kate actually look at each other and not flinch. There were tears. There were apologies, awkward and halting and messy. Mom said, "Please come home," but Kate wasn't ready to see Dad, not yet. The compromise was Thai takeout, Mom's idea of diplomacy, at my place. To my absolute astonishment, it was civil. Mom told Kate she spent years feeling like she was always one word away from making everything worse. Kate admitted she purposely pushed boundaries as a teenager, not because she hated our mom, but because she didn't know how to forgive her for not being her mother, if that makes sense. The family therapy saga. After that dinner, Kate said she wanted to do the therapy thing. I thought she'd back out, but the next morning she sat on my bed, with zero boundaries, as sisters do, and said, "I don't want to be this angry person anymore." Dad was reluctant, but agreed to one session just to listen. Picture 4 people sitting in a circle of ergonomic chairs, silently drinking watery coffee, and staring anywhere but at each other. The therapist, a legend, opened by asking us to describe a family memory. Kate started and, somehow, the story turned into one about a Christmas when Dad forgot to buy her favorite chocolates. She remembered it as proof no one cared. Dad remembered working late to afford a bigger gift. I remembered Kate screaming about favoritism and pelting snowballs at the window. Our therapist pointed out how we'd 3 completely different realities from a single night. That theme ran all session. A surreal, slightly painful realization that we had all been living in parallel universes in the same house. Kate cried. Dad cried. Mom hugged us both, then awkwardly asked the therapist if there was a syllabus for family healing. Classic mom. We left with more questions than answers, no dramatic breakthrough, but a sense that the ice was maybe starting to crack. New levels of chaos, aka, the ex-fiancé twist. Meanwhile, Kate's ex reached out to me again. He asked if I could return some of Kate's stuff and if we could talk. We met in a coffee shop smelling of burnt espresso and old sugar packets. He said that during all the drama, he'd started thinking about his own family, about stories that get rewritten, about people being more than their worst moment. He didn't want to get back together, Kate had already guessed, but he did want her to know that while what she did was unforgivable for now, he hoped she'd forgive herself one day. He left me with a battered box of Kate's things, letters, a concert t-shirt, some drawings she did, and handed over a note for her. No matter what came next, he said, he was glad she had a real sister. Kate locked herself in the bathroom to read the note and came out, pink-eyed, but different, like something had shifted and softened. Then, the weirdest revival, Kate invited me to her therapist. It was confusing and a little awkward, but her therapist had this way of cutting through her self-pity and calling her out on her perfectionism spiral, which I recognized in myself, too. She asked us to list reasons why we liked each other, not loved, just liked. We laughed so hard when Kate said, "She makes edible mac and cheese," and I said, "She's the only person who laughed at my haunted doll collection." Don't judge, surprise sibling alliance. Over the next week, something almost magical happened. Kate got a freelance gig, she's actually a great animator, who knew? And bought groceries to pay rent. We managed to have a movie night, tease each other, and only argue about who loads the dishwasher. One day she found my old high school journal and started reading it as revenge for all the family drama. Unexpectedly, she found a poem I'd written, at age 16, about wishing I had a sister I could talk to. She got quiet. Later, she said, "I really let you down." I said, "It wasn't just you. I never tried either." We decided to try being sisters for real, including the mortifying teenage secrets, ancient gripes, and our wildly different memories of almost everything. Then, a family announcement, Granddad's 80th. Mom wants all of us there. Kate is nervous. I am too. We're basically going as a test run team, sister. Our parents don't know she's agreed to go yet. I think maybe, just maybe, this will be the first time we show up as allies instead of rivals. To sum it up, not with bullet points, just the chaos, we are still messy, but messily honest. Our family is still wary, but begun the glacial process of thawing. Kate isn't healed. I'm not either. But we are learning to say maybe that wasn't how I remember it, and move forward, together. Next week I'll be back to tell you if we made it through Granddad's party without anyone crying into the cheese platter. Odds are, 50-50, update 4. So, if you were placing bets on what could go haywire at Granddad's 80th, let me just say, whatever odds you picked, life found something weirder. Because this test run team sister wasn't just about whether Kate and I could be civil. It turned out to be a pop quiz on forgiveness, the messy surprises of adulthood, and how many secrets can actually fit inside a single family kitchen. Let's rewind. Kate and I spent the whole week low-key anxious. We practiced small talk in the car. Me, don't ask Uncle Frank about Bitcoin. Kate, don't tell Aunt Rita I'm off social media. But nothing could have readied us for the actual reunion vortex awaiting at Granddad's house. When we walked in, everyone paused, the kind of pause usually reserved for surprise engagements or family pets returning from the grave. Granddad hugged us both as if he'd suspected he was imagining things, both my girls. At once? Someone take my blood pressure. Even Dad got misty-eyed, which is saying something, since his emotional range is usually sports highlights or smiling politely at work jokes. We managed an hour of normalcy, catching up with cousins, but then the real bombshell dropped. Apparently, people had noticed Kate's absence and the ex-fiancé gossip had traveled. My family is as subtle as a tornado in a glassware store, so of course someone had to bring it up. Cue Aunt Rita, who leaned across the cheese platter and asked, "So, Kate, are you and your sister finally burying the hatchet?" Kate looked directly at her, and, for the first time ever, addressed the whole room. She said, "I've been a pretty rotten sister and daughter at times. And I told some lies because I was angry and scared and didn't know how else to talk about how out of place I felt. But we're trying. That's all I can say." Complete silence, shattered only by the sound of Granddad blowing his nose, past the tissues. I never thought I'd see the day. But here's where things took a truly unpredictable turn. Our parents, Mom and Dad, sat together with Kate and me in the sunroom after dessert. Dad, who almost never apologizes for things that happened 20 years ago, put his hand on Kate's shoulder and said, "If I knew how much pain you were in, I would have done anything to help. I was so afraid of messing up that I just pretended everything was normal." Kate started crying, but it wasn't ugly crying. It was the kind of tears you get when someone finally says the thing you needed to hear as a kid, even if you're technically too old for it now. Then Mom, in absolute peak mom fashion, announced she'd been seeing a therapist herself, secretly, for months. She'd realized after our last family session that some of her own reactions, the trying to make everything better thing, the avoidance, the smothering, weren't actually helping any of us. And then she dropped this: "I wrote all my regrets down. Maybe you'll want to read them someday." She and Kate cried together, and instead of feeling left out, I felt relieved. Here's the unthinkable bit. Somewhere in the middle of gifts and making fun of Granddad's apocalypse supply of canned peaches, Kate's ex-fiancé showed up. I was in the kitchen doing battle with a cheese knife when I saw him on the porch, holding a battered tin. Turned out he had a gift for Granddad. They actually bonded over old motorcycles, but what floored me was that he asked politely if he could have a word with Kate. For 10 minutes, every cousin invented urgent reasons to stalk the hallway, just getting a drink for Grandma. And myself. And maybe Kate? And, wait, are they crying? Kate came back in after, red-eyed but grinning. "No, we're not getting back together," she mouthed. But apparently, he'd seen her apology for what it was, the first step. He said he hoped she'd find someone who could handle the real her, the complicated, stubborn, honest her. And he returned her old sketchbook. Which she immediately made me promise to keep for safekeeping, since, according to her, "You're the more responsible one now." Jury's out. Best/worst part? Kate and I found ourselves actually laughing about the weirdness, something that's never happened before at a family event, at least not together. That night, after the party, we sat out on Granddad's ancient swing and made a pact. Every month, we'd do something together that didn't involve family therapy, old drama, or trauma dumping, just a new memory. Movie night, museum trip, kayaking, whatever. I think we're both terrified, but also kind of giddy. The morning after, I woke up to find Kate on the phone, telling Mom, "Fine, I'll come by for dinner, but only if you promise not to invite the entire neighborhood and not to ask about my dating life." Progress. Not a Hollywood ending, still a work in progress, but something real. People on Reddit have told me they love chaos, but this is a different flavor. This is the chaos of second chances, awkward truths buried in potato salad, and the absolute, mind-bending possibility that sometimes, people can change. Update 5. Okay, Reddit, strap in, because if this year has taught me anything, it's that rock bottom is just another floor in the family drama skyscraper, and apparently, there's an elevator under construction. I thought Granddad's 80th was the emotional boss battle, but as it turns out, family, the extended universe is always sneaking sequels onto the schedule. Ready for the latest? Here's how things went seriously sideways and then kept going. After the pact on the porch, Kate actually moved out of my place, on friendly terms, which is a milestone on its own. She found a cramped studio apartment sublet across town, small enough that you can microwave dinner from the shower, but she declared it mine, and only mine, like she'd just staked out a new country. She got busy with her freelance project, and I went back to living alone, wondering if maybe, miraculously, we were turning into those sisters you see on sitcoms, less sabotage, more shared memes. But then, because this is my family, the holiday season arrived like a glitter-dusted panic attack. Halloween was meant to be our new memory trial. Kate and I, possibly overcompensating, decided to host a pumpkin carving night for our cousins. We invited literally everyone, figuring chaos was our brand, so why not control the environment? Mom came, of course, nervous and carrying vegan hot chocolate for exactly nobody. Dad showed up late and spent half the night trying to fix the flickering porch light. For an hour, it was actually fun. Kate and I were competitive over who could make the scarier pumpkin. She won. Hers was based on her old high school principal. There was laughter, roasted seeds, and, because this is us, at least 4 mild kitchen fires. Enter Uncle Frank. Of course. He's been mostly a background character all these years, but suddenly he asked, loudly, in front of everyone, "So, Kate, you telling any more tall tales these days, or do you save those for your old in-laws?" The whole room froze. The new cousins, the ones Kate barely knew, looked at the floor. I wanted to evaporate. For a second, I thought Kate was about to storm out. But instead, she put down her carving knife, stood up, and, with hands shaking, said, "Yeah. I told a lot of stories. I was angry, and I've apologized to the people I hurt. If anyone's got a problem with it, now's a good time to get it out." I braced for a blow-up, but none came. The weirdest part? Several cousins quietly admitted they'd kind of envied her fiery streak growing up. "At least you spoke your mind," one said. Most of us just quietly hated everything. Cue some nervous laughter. Kate looked drained, but afterward, she told me she felt a little lighter, not forgiven by everyone, but no longer hiding. Because one family gathering per holiday season wasn't enough, December came in swinging. Mom wanted a Norman Rockwell Christmas. Kate was nervous. She'd only agreed if we all promised to do a no-blaming, no-shaming gift exchange. In a move I will regret until my dying day, I suggested everyone write down a family memory and wrap it with their gift, like a secret Santa with a therapy side quest. Christmas Eve. There were gifts, some hilariously off base. Thanks for the egg slicer, Dad, wine, and stories. The best part? Kate's memory. She wrote about a night when we were little, and I sneaked into her room during a storm because I was scared. She pretended she was annoyed but secretly loved it because, for once, someone needed her. She called it the night of the blanket fort treaty. I'd forgotten, but reading it brought a lump to my throat. Then, plot twist, Granddad gave his memory. The first summer after your dad remarried, Kate spent every weekend helping me oil the garden tools. She didn't talk much. But she always showed up. No one knew that. Not even Kate. She ended up crying again, happy tears, I think? She assured us, face buried in a pile of wrapping paper. But it wouldn't be my family if something didn't go nuclear. The day after Christmas, Dad's mom, our last living grandparent, was admitted to the hospital. Not life-threatening, but enough to bring every unresolved issue boiling up again. Kate, always the avoidant one, texted me in a panic, "What if I visit and she says something awful?" I said, "We go together. Strength in numbers, right?" That hospital trip is one for the books. Grandma was high on pain meds, calling Kate by my name, then apologizing to me for breaking Kate's heart in the 90s. She made both of us promise to take care of each other. She actually reached out and pulled our hands together. Don't waste what's left of your youth holding grudges for people who never knew how to love perfectly. Slurred, but somehow perfect. In the car, Kate said she didn't want to waste another decade angry. She hugged me and said, "If that means you have to put up with all my neuroses and revenge movie marathons for life, well, tough. Here's the postscript you've, maybe, been waiting for." Kate got a message from her ex-fiancé's mom out of nowhere. It wasn't some big reconciliation, more like a peace offering. She thanked Kate for owning her mistakes, said she wished things had worked out but was glad Kate was working to be better. She even offered to give a reference if Kate needed one for an apartment. We both sat with our mouths open for a good 5 minutes. I think it was the first time Kate believed redemption might actually apply to her, too. So, where does that leave us? Kate and I still squabble about everything from the thermostat to whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It does not. She still tells her therapist that forgiveness isn't a magical switch, and I tell mine that boundaries are allowed, even if you're related. But, and this is truly wild, we just bought tickets for a stupidly overpriced paint and sip night. Next month, we're going to a concert together. When she got food poisoning last week, I was the one she called. I took her to urgent care, and in the middle of waiting for a nurse, she asked, "Are we really doing this? Being sisters, I mean." I said, "Yeah. Turns out, I have your back, even when you're green in the face and asking for my last saltine." If you'd told me a year ago I'd consider Kate my closest confidant, I'd have laughed until I broke the internet. It's not a neat ending. Sometimes she still grieves all the lost time. So do I, but now we get to be weirdos together, and that counts for something. Stay tuned for our next misadventure. Knowing us, it's probably going to include at least one minor disaster, a cup of bad instant noodles, and the world's ugliest paint and sip masterpiece. But for the first time, I'm excited to see what comes next. And if we can survive family group texts, holiday trauma, and Uncle Frank's conspiracy theories, I'm actually beginning to believe we can survive anything.